According to legend, the water of life is whiskey. Trusted since 1795, Jim Beam whiskey is carefully made in Kentucky. Here, for a period of time, the whiskeys mature in nat-charred white oak barrels. Only high-grade white oak trees are used for barrel production. These white oaks grow slowly and solid, keeping the grain and radial rays close. This makes a tough, high-density wood with long, stringy fibers, which helps prevent liquids from penetrating the wood. Therefore, this wood makes barrels of exceptional quality for storing valuable Jim Beam whiskey. When the logs are delivered to the stave mill, they are graded and split into stave or heading bolts. Staves become the barrel's size, and heading forms the top and bottom. The stave bolts are equalized to the correct length. A saw designed to match the barrel's circumference puts a slight curve into the stave. Quarter sawing gives added strength and prevents warping or shrinking. The bark and all possible defects are removed by straight edging. An inspector then grades the staves for length, thickness, and quality before they are placed in the field to air dry. Heading is also equalized and quarter sawn. Edging procedures are again used before inspection and stacking. As with the staves, heading must be air dried. This allows the moisture content to lower before the pallets are taken to the cooperage plant. Once at the plant, the staves and heading are unloaded for additional drying. The stacked pallets are then put into the dry kilns. Periodically, an inspector picks random samples and tests them for the correct moisture level. The temperature and relative humidity inside the kiln are then adjusted. When the desired moisture content is achieved, the staves and heading are taken to the production lines. The staves are first planed to the proper thickness. An equalizer then cuts the ends for a clean, exact length. Jointing the edges is a crucial operation. This procedure forms the middle bilge in the stave. Bilge gives added resistance to internal pressure by enabling the joints to tighten in a uniform circumference. The staves are again stacked after inspection. Heading is also planed to regulations. When the heading is jointed, a slightly beveled edge is made to allow for expansion. The grain and joints are then inspected before continuing down the line. The heading is matched by length and width, then pinned with dowel rods for extra strength. The assembled heading is then sawn to diameter before charring. The heads are charred over open flames for a short period of time. They then roll down a wax tray to ensure a tight seal in the finished barrel. After charring and waxing to beam standards, the heads are stacked for barrel assembly. Raising the barrel is a complex operation. The finished staves are tightly set into a head truss ring. When the second temporary ring is placed, the barrel moves to the steam tunnel. In the controlled steam, the white oak softens, enabling the barrel to be drawn into the correct shape. The drying tunnel restores the correct moisture level after the final shaping. Temporary belly rings are placed and a leveler raises. The staves are pushed out, tightening and leveling the barrel against the rings. The char is an important aspect in barrel assembly. There are 4 levels of char. Each level affects the whiskey's flavor and color. To meet Jim Beam specifications, the char level is carefully controlled. A crozer then cuts the tight-fitting head grooves. The diameter and crows are inspected before the temporary head rings are removed. The first head is secured and hooped. Water is then added before the second head and hoop are put into place. The belly rings are removed and any defects are repaired before the final phase of production. As the barrels proceed, the belly hoops are assembled. A slight flare is made in the hoop to match the curve of the barrel. In the last stage of assembly, the flared hoops are tightly secured over the belly. The finished whiskey barrel is then inspected, ensuring that the length and circumference meet Jim Beam standards. Temporarily, the barrels are stored and cooled before the final processing. The barrels are first sanded, free of splinters and rough edges. The bunghole is then drilled and a temporary stopper is placed. Gauged amounts of water and air are added under pressure to detect any leaks. The head and crows are checked for a tight fit. The inspector then rotates the barrel and checks for signs of leakage. The heads are sanded by hand, making them clean and smooth for the Jim Beam stencil. After a final inspection is made, the barrels are loaded onto the truck. No more than 5 days old, the white oak barrels are delivered to the Jim Beam Bourbon Whiskey Distillery in Kentucky. The barrels are immediately filled with exact measurements of clear Jim Beam whiskey. The bung plug is securely placed and the full barrel is stamped with Beam's label and date. Beam warehouses their bourbon whiskey several years for maturation. During the summer, as the whiskey heats and expands, it works through the charred wood and into the barrel's caramel layer. As the weather cools, the whiskey extracts. This process adds flavor and color to the whiskey. The length of maturing time is a major factor in Jim Beam's smooth, perfect taste. Jim Beam Bourbon Whiskeys, the final product of precise distilling and careful aging in a new white oak barrel.